I am the philosophical bachelor, and today I want to talk about how Lakatos rationalizes Kuhn. Both Imre Lakatos and Thomas Kuhn recognize that history and sociology are needed to understand the scientific enterprise. However, Kuhn interprets changes in paradigms as sudden and irrational, in contrast to Lakatos, who, examining the same history, sees instead a dynamic of progressive and degenerating research programs, while continuing to accept Kuhn's idea of scientific revolution. This paper examines how Lakatos rationalizes Kuhn's theory of scientific revolution. Chapter 1. From the logical positivist to Kuhn. What differentiates science from pseudoscience? The logical positivists believe that scientific theories need to be objectively grounded in facts, based on abstract reasoning or experimental confirmation. Popper argues against this notion of confirmation, since there can always be further instances which disconfirms a theory. The criterion of confirmation can never be fully satisfied. In addition, he thinks that confirmations only count if they are the result of risky predictions, where if not for the theory, events incompatible with the theory would have been expected. Instead, the theory makes a bold prediction of events previously undreamed of. He proposes a better criterion of demarcation. What makes a theory scientific is its falsifiability, where one specifies in advance a crucial experiment or observation which can falsify it. However, Lakatos observes that falsification is not what scientists do. When scientists encounter observations that cannot be explained by their theories, they do not discard them. Instead, they attempt to explain the anomalies or ignore them, considering them aberrations and not refutations. Kuhn holds neither view. For him, science operates within paradigms. A paradigm is characterized by a set of fundamental theoretical assumptions which go unquestioned by the scientific community, leading to general agreement on how research should proceed, since there is a constellation of shared assumptions, beliefs, and values which unites them. Kuhn terms such research normal science, where scientists work within the prevailing paradigm. When anomalies occur, scientists operating in normal science are likely to believe they have made an error rather than question the veracity of the paradigm. However, over time, anomalies accumulate, leading to a growing sense of crisis in the paradigm, finally culminating in a breakdown in confidence. This marks the start of a period of revolutionary science, where alternative theories are proposed, with the best one leading to a radical new paradigm. While Kuhn thinks revolution happens suddenly, he acknowledges that the switchover by all to the new paradigm is not instantaneous. It might take a generation when the scientists sticking to the older paradigm die out or convert, allowing those who adhere to the new paradigm to become dominant. Chapter 2. Lakatos' Rationalization of Kuhn. Kuhn's account of scientific development requires an irrational change in commitment, which is puzzling to many who view science as a rational enterprise. To remedy this, Lakatos presents his methodology of scientific research programs. A research program consists of a hard core of laws protected by a more flexible belt of auxiliary hypotheses. All research programs have unsolved problems and anomalies even from the start. Hence, the Popperian falsifiability distinction is not what makes a theory scientific, since all theories would then be born refuted. Lakatos does, however, sympathize with Popper's idea of risky predictions. He writes, in a progressive research program, theory leads to the discovery of hitherto unknown novel facts. In degenerating programs, however, theories are fabricated only in order to accommodate known facts. Like Kuhn, Lakatos thinks that scientific revolution accounts for how science develops. However, the details differ. For Lakatos, given two rival research programs in which one is degenerating while the other is progressing, scientists will tend towards the progressive one. Contrary to Kuhn, Lakatos observes from history that scientific revolutions are neither sudden nor irrational. Instead, they are gradual, with progressive research programs replacing degenerating ones, an example being Lavoisier's theory of combustion replacing phlogiston theory. According to Ladyman, phlogiston theorists did not simply die out but converted almost unanimously. Lakatos' theory rationalizes Kuhn's. According to Akasha, Kuhn's theory of scientific revolution has two supporting arguments: incommensurability and theoryladenness. Competing paradigms might be so different from one another that there is no common language into which both can be translated, making them incommensurable. Hence, there is no way to determine which is better, since scientists working in different paradigms have no common language to even make the comparison. Related to this incommensurability is theoryladenness. Experimental data depends on the theory it arises from. There is no theory-neutral data. This is because perception is conditioned by background beliefs such as the theory, with observations described in the language of the theory. An example is the valency of elements. Based on the planetary model of atoms paradigm, a scientist will observe that elements combine in chemical reactions based on their respective valencies. However, scientists using the quantum mechanics paradigm will explain it in a completely different way, using the vocabulary of quanta and energy levels. Both describe the same phenomena in different theoretical languages, with each description depending on the respective theory. Since competing paradigms are incommensurable with their data dependent on their respective paradigms, the only way one can switch between competing paradigms is by a revolutionary shift akin to a religious conversion. These two characteristics of incommensurability and theoryladenness are powerful supports for Kuhn's account of why science develops through scientific revolution. Lakatos' methodology retains these two characteristics, since he abides by Kuhn's notion of scientific revolution, but yet do not require a sudden irrational leap of faith to transition between paradigms or research programs. Instead, this transition is a more rational, albeit gradual, switching to the winning theme of the more progressive research program and a gradual hollowing out and ultimate abandonment of the degenerating research program. In conclusion, contrary to the common intuition that the scientific enterprise is rational, Kuhn's account requires an irrational leap of faith. Lakatos rationalizes Kuhn's idea with his methodology of research programs, which explains the transition between competing paradigms from a degenerative to a progressive research program. In that way, Lakatos improves on Kuhn's concept of scientific revolution while retaining the emphasis Kuhn places on the history of science and sociological factors in determining how science develops. Once again, thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment on the video. I would love to hear from you.